Welcome to Happiness in the City. This is Barbara, and it's just so awesome to be here and focus on good things, happy things, noble things. I found that ever since I started doing this, all kinds of amazing things started happening around me. And one of the things that I realized is that the dimension of happiness is very important for politics, not only for our personal lives, but also for politics. And I realized how little I knew about it because a lot of the political education I received was about conflict, division of labor, wars, and all of that. But there's this other aspect of politics that has huge tradition, and it is focus on life, liberty, and happiness. In American founding documents, it is called pursuit of happiness. So right to life, right to liberty, and right to pursuit of happiness. But in the original tradition of European leadership, it is not a right, but it is nature of authority. So it is higher than right, because right has to be enforced. But nature is just lived, is accepted, is considered one of the things that are there, and we just harmonize with this. So there are two aspects of life, liberty, and happiness that are very important for us to understand. And when I was looking at the history of European ways that appreciated life, liberty, and happiness, I realized that they come from the basic understanding, fundamental understanding that life, liberty, and happiness come from Spirit of God. So Spirit of God is the spirit that deals with connecting it to all individuals and things in a particular time period. Whereas when we have rights, we have to have enforcement. So we have to really think about those matters, because maybe we are missing wisdom from our ancestors that is making our lives limited. So rights are very important, and we are dealing with this situation as we know it today, but maybe we can be lifted up to a higher level and have this connection of mutual understanding that doesn't need enforcement, that it just is acceptance of certain beautiful, noble, amazing things that lift us all up to a dimension of political love and political order of things that comes from them. So this is something that I just recently started thinking about, because I didn't understand it. Just like you, I grew up in the understanding that we have to have rights and enforcement of rights. But then enforcement of rights mean that we are never free, that we always have this controlling force that checks on our lives, liberties, and pursuit of happiness. So, what to do about it, how to deal with this? I'm searching for that knowledge from God, and I'll ask Him also to share it with you, because one of the things I noticed when I ask God, it's not like He's telling it to me and then I just like an exclusive reporter pass it on to you. He tells it to me, but He also shares it with you. And this is really amazing. This is something that I've noticed even in many people around me. They started receiving that blessing from God, and this once again lifts me up to an understanding that there is this higher level of communication that is lifting politics to a majestic level, something that our ancestors knew and somehow we were not taught. And I've been learning a lot from Psalm 69. I've been doing this meditation on Psalm 69 for a few months now, asking God for knowledge about it, because like many of you, I've had to deal with a very serious trauma issue. And then I realized that this psalm is website to God to receive healing for trauma, to understand what it is and how to deal it from divine perspective, but then to receive that healing from God like King David received it. And this is something that is very powerful. And today I wanted to talk about the political leadership here in as King David reveals it, is connected to receiving forgiveness from God. So King David says, I made sackcloth also my garment, and I became a proverb to them. He means to those who were reproaching him. He was weeping, and he chastened his soul. He had zeal for the house of the Lord. And he was dealing with that separation between his love of God and those who were attacking him for it. And I realized that we have a lot of talk about separation of church and state. And this is something that, of course, would make only sense if there is state and if there is church. And here we are dealing with a leader that is not talking about state and church, but he is talking about his connection to God and his need to separate from those who are reproaching him and attacking him. So this is a different level of understanding separation between political leadership and those who attack it. So at this particular level, church is not even in focus, church or temple. So there's a dimension of political leadership that is directly involved with God. And that is very big revelation for me, because it means that authority deals with many forces trying to separate it from God, and communication with God and forgiveness from God's heart and God's will. So this is a dimension of politics that is new to me, because I was really just taught like you about presence of God only in churches and in synagogues, but here it is in political authority that the presence of God and communication of God with the leader takes place. And the separation is not between the leader and the church or the synagogue. The separation is between the leader and all that wickedness and reproaches around him that attack him. And the leader is actually talking about his soul, which is a topic that is non-existent in contemporary political speech, and fasting, and then about making sackcloth his garment. We are used to thinking about royal power as kings and queens dressed in majestic coats and outfits and all of those amazing things. That is a form of creation, beautiful majesty. But here we have a situation in which King David is asking God for forgiveness and for help, and he's putting on sackcloth. This is really something that that is amazing. Can you imagine, like, some of the leaders today that are very famous would do that? It would be kind of awesome, like all European Union leaders putting on sackcloth and asking God to forgive them and direct them in the right way of understanding politics. That would be awesome. They're not doing it, of course, but it would be great if that understanding came to them, that in order to deal with wealth and great heritage of nations and future, they should ask that direction from God himself. In other words, this is a higher dimension of connection to God than church and state or church and synagogue. This is directly with God, and asking God to separate politics from all that reproach and wickedness. Very interesting. And I think that if we understand it in world leadership today, we will enter an era of political communication that is very beautiful and that is very respectful and wise, because it would create a situation in which political leaders ask God to forgive them and stop attacking people for what's wrong in their realms. So that would release a lot of bad connection in nations. I think that would be a very good thing, because When you look at the current political communication, it's almost one huge cry of blaming and guilt and restrictions and restraints and sanctions. And that is not the way King David teaches here. In other words, let's suppose we have a chief of police, right? And he, instead of making a list of people to detain, he's putting on a sackcloth and asking God to show him the way. Wouldn't it be beautiful? I think that we have to rethink the entire matter of security in such terms, because the trauma that is happening today is uncontrollable and unstoppable without God. So we don't have to deal with matters of rights and laws restricting us. We can go into that higher level directly to God and ask Him for direction in matters of political security, national security, world security. I think that this is the missing link. We are not doing it. I'm doing it right now with you on that program. And I ask God also to show me how to think about it, because that's new to me. The fact that I can think about security in ways that King David is teaching here, asking God for forgiveness, putting on a sackcloth, asking Him to show how to chasten our souls, showing how to have those souls, the immortal souls, how to receive the immortal soul. I think those are very important matters. And the outcome that comes from it is healing, new life, happiness, joy, and liberty that our ancestors knew, and we can know too. And with that would come true security. One of the great things about this is that this can apply to all leaders all over the world, because it's the direct connection to God. It's turning to Him for help. So there's no restriction here on where a person comes from. It's just a matter of turning towards God, like King David did in political leadership. And that authority is what God will start healing. So this leads us to another very important thing, that authority is connection between power and leadership and people, and it can be sick, it can be injured, it can be very sinful, transgressing, filled with iniquities. So we have to understand that we should learn how to receive healing for it. I was in my personal life several times in a situation that I had no authority. After I was injured, I was in hospitals, and doctors had authority, and then I had authority, and then I didn't. So finally, I started understanding that connection and disconnection to authority in my personal life can be healed. And I was injured in a political conflict, very serious conflict during Cold War. And when I realized that God is interested in politics and that He's teaching me about the authority trauma I went through in my personal life, then I have hope. I have hope in my heart I didn't even know existed. I have hope that God can heal my personal trauma, but also then I realized that political authority trauma is in many nations, and people don't know how to deal with this. Political leaders don't know how to deal with this. They look into money, they look into all kinds of financial institutions or restrictions or rules and regulations, but they should turn to God. They should turn to God to show them how to do it in particular regions, in particular cities, in particular nations, in particular continents, because we all come from long lines of family heritage from different houses, and even with matters of immigration, when people's attention gets focused on their own heritage and on God teaching them how to deal within their borders, they would not even want to immigrate that much, because they will have that life, liberty, and happiness within their own land and within their own communities and connections. So I think that this is something that just as we learned how to use internet, we can learn this too. And we can ask God to show us how to do it. How to do it in all countries of the world. And I don't know how to do it, but God can reveal this to all leaders of the world, and then they will know that there's this beautiful way of creating political connections and decision making. And I think that this is hope for the world. And this is hope that we can develop in the young generations who are very lost, who are dealing with wars that no one prepared them for, because it was all about peace. Like even in Ukraine and Russia, before that war broke up, it was all about peace, and it turned out it was not peace, it was a certain emptiness that then ended up into violence. There's so much violence today. Even in our universities, I was shocked to hear about a great tragedy that happened to a professor from MIT, and I'm totally focused now on asking God to bring in His security and presence to MIT too, to Brown University, Harvard University, and other schools, that original educational power and authority that started in America with Harvard University, that Spirit of God, who is still there, that the Spirit of God, that He can bring in His presence to all schools in America and show us how to lift political security to His level. Because in my opinion, what is happening right now will not be solved by human security. It has to be solved by God Himself. Some people know God directly, Adonai, Son of God, Jesus Christ of Nazareth, Holy Spirit. Some consider God Creator, but we all as human beings have capacity in our heart to receive God's love. So let this love will be the beginning of understanding the need for loving security from our Creator, from God Himself, and that His wisdom and His direction will bring us safety and security so that we can continue our destinies and our lives with power of true love and security and safety that comes from God, who will shield us from very dangerous ways of some people who have no respect for human life. So thank you so much for listening to those remarks, and I ask God for a miracle of divine security to come to the whole world so that we can continue in beautiful peace and divine love.